Hello and welcome to the No Hesitations podcast. We are your co-hosts,
Kristen Marvin with Solutions by Kristen.
And Nick Spinelli. That's me.
We talk about all things leadership, successes, challenges, and every topic in between, with the goal of helping you become a better leader.
So join the conversation each week wherever you find your podcasts, because there's no time like the present to listen in and level up. Kristen, we have another doubleheader this morning. Who have we got?
Doubleheader. We're going to have some fun today. So we have Andrew Mangan and Ryan Farrell. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you. This is going to be a very fun, energetic, competitive podcast we feel today. Andrew and Ryan have been, do I call you are you world champions?
Depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to me, yeah, it works.
World champions in ultimate Frisbee. So we're going to learn a little bit more about their Frisbee backgrounds and the two of them. I've been fortunate enough to know Andrew and work with him for over 10 years. And through Andrew, I met Ryan, who has been my coach for about a year and a half, which has been incredible. So before we dive into these, into their incredible sports histories here and legacies, let's talk a little bit more about who they are. So Andrew Mangan spent 2 decades in the restaurant industry and has since been on a journey to bring his expertise in leadership, service, and hospitality to other industries. Today, he is the Chief Operating Officer at Harness Energy, who provides data measurement resources to wind and solar developers across the U.S. and world markets. He makes his home in Denver with his wife and 2 children and loves to partake in everything that the Colorado outdoors has to offer. Ryan Farrell has been a human resources leader in the nonprofit and craft beer space for over 15 years. He is currently the Vice President of Staff Development at the Brewers Association, the national nonprofit for craft breweries, and he's a solopreneur. I always struggle with that word, with a coaching and facilitation practice. He's a proud husband and father to 2 young children, and he has at least 2 more Ultimate Frisbee gold medals than Andrew. So the gloves are off. Nick, where are we going today? What do we want to talk about?
I need to know why you're so competitive with each other, because at first glance, it's not immediately apparent in those intros how you know each other and where the rivalry began. But I need to know, because if that's true, Ryan, that you have 2 more medals, it's all the more impressive, because before we logged on, Andrew actually came in this morning and had all his medals on. Ryan didn't even need to show them off. He was like, I am secure, I am confident, I know that I'm better. I need to know where it all started.
Drew, you want to do it?
Sure. Yeah, I can kick us off here. And first of all, I'll say thank you for having us on. Super excited to be here and chat with you all about leadership. And I would also note that there is no need to provoke any competitiveness, Kristen, between Ryan and I. You don't have to stoke the fire in any way.
It's already been provoked.
Right. So Ryan and I go back 20 plus years at this point. We were both undergrad at William and Mary, the College of William and Mary in Virginia. And we both played on the Ultimate Frisbee team at William and Mary. And I don't think either of us planned on having a 20 plus career playing Ultimate Frisbee, but we were both freshmen, and I think we had different athletic backgrounds coming into college, and maybe weren't the looking for a college athletics experience, and ended up playing this kind of weird small club sport. And for me, anyway, I ended up falling in love with Ultimate Frisbee and the competitiveness and the spirit of it. And, there's a really amazing community of Ultimate Frisbee players all over the country and across the world. So it's been a really big part of my life since 2000, when I started in college. And Ryan, I'll let you jump in here, but we actually separately ended up in Colorado after college years later, and ended up playing on the same club Ultimate Frisbee team, which is sort of the elite level of ultimate Frisbee. And we, for almost 10 years, we played in some capacity, led that team, captained in different aspects. So we have a long history of playing together. We've played together more than not. So it is sort of funny for us to be competitive in that, but we've played a lot of games, then do a lot of practices together, had a lot of ups and downs, heartbreak, and a couple medals together. So yeah, that's my brief history.
Yeah, it's funny, Drew, when I think about like our joking competitiveness, it makes me think of, and I have 3 brothers. It makes me think of my brothers. There's like, there's like, I'm thinking about like when you're a kid and somebody picks on your brother, you'll stand up for them and be like, only I get to do that. I'm the only one who gets to fuck with my brother. So there's this, it's this, sort of ferocity that is actually the foundation of it is love and history. And yeah, it's just like brothers, right? My brothers and I have traveled separate paths, and now 2 of my 3 brothers actually live here in Colorado after following their own journeys. And it's the same with Andrew and I, right? We somehow ended up being back together and working closely together, staying close. And Drew, I don't know if this is how you think of it, but at William and Mary, we were close, but we're way closer now. I never thought that we would end up here being 40 years old and be as tight as we are.
No, agreed. Yeah, we certainly, I don't think we really hung out much in college. We were in different friend groups for sure, outside of the Frisbee, tournaments and such. But
yeah, I never got the invite to the fraternity, so I guess it was it just wasn't meant to be at that time.
And I never got the invite to like play Madden 98 all night at your dorm.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
We could change both of those things. We have time. You said you're only 40.
I think it's too late.
Bummer. I mean, that certainly explains how you know each other then. So thank you for that. All right. I figure maybe we could just dig a little bit deeper into each of your backgrounds, because both of your titles, COO and VP of Staff Development, I think there's a lot to unpack with both of those. So, Andrew, maybe we can start with you. Chief Operating Officer, Harness Energy. I would imagine you've had a long path up to this point. Data measurement resources to wind and solar developers. Has that always been the industry that you've worked in since college, or is that a relatively recent thing for you?
No, it's new for me. The industry is. I spent 2 decades in restaurants, from dishwasher to GM, regional manager. Have essentially worked in every and any position in a restaurant over those 20 years. And that's how Kristen and I met. She and I worked really closely, actually, at 2 different concepts here in Denver, with Bonanno Concepts, and then at Snooze, was there for 7 years almost. So, I have been on this really fun journey of, restaurant hospitality operations. And then I got to a point just before the pandemic where I was really looking for a change, and thought that with the, kind of operational skill set, leadership skill set, I'd been running big teams, doing lots of leadership development, mentorship, coaching, and with the hospitality side of restaurants really as the core piece of what I love, I really thought that there was a way for me to branch out of restaurants, but still carry that sort of focus on hospitality, taking care of people, both the people that work for you and the people that you're serving in whatever industry that you're in. So I've been on a little bit of a journey since then. In 2019, I've spent some time in the medical world, spent some time in the finance world, have done some consulting, small business consulting on my own, and just the beginning of this year landed at Harness in the COO role, and it has been a really fun, unique fit for me, and able to really lean into organization and structuring and building a company. Harness has been around for 15 years, but has really seen very, very fast growth over the last 2 or 3 years as wind and solar has increasingly taken off. The amount of investment money that's there, the cost of building these projects has come down, so it's more. It makes more sense for some of these larger companies to build. So Harness has grown really quickly, and I've been able to come in and lean into building small business skills, organization, structure, and then bringing that leadership and culture piece as well to really help this company get to a good place so that we can continue to scale. So yeah, long, weird journey, but
yeah, long and circuitous path.
Yeah, but I think the common theme for me, right? I've sort of have this belief that it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what product you're selling or what service you're selling. If you can provide a space for your people to be happy and feel successful and able to grow and learn, you can really do a lot and go far. And I think that applies to every industry and every business, regardless of what that widget is that you're selling.
Yeah. I have a few questions in mind, and we can come back to those. But I want to pivot over to Ryan for a second. Ryan, human resources leader, VP of staff development. How much of that is HR? Like what we would think of, or what a layperson would traditionally think of as like HR functions, right? And how much of that truly is like you are just coaching and working with people to bring out their best every day?
Yeah, I love that question, Nick. If HR was just those nuts and bolts, plus being the fun police, right? Like the most people's conception.
Your words, not mine.
The circumstances under which they would be in a conversation with HR, it's like that induces dread. And right from the beginning, when I carved my way into HR, the way I did that was, I just kept raising my hand for things. So somebody needs to do the payroll. Great, I'll do it. Somebody needs to do the benefits. Great, I'll do it. Our performance evaluations are all over the map. Somebody needs to get these in line and in order. Great, I'll do it. So in the beginning, I just kept saying yes to things. And then as time passed, I used or leveraged that knowledge of what was going on in the nuts and bolts to really start to have those more meaningful coaching conversations with our staff. And, I love, Andrew and I have talked about his messages. You probably see it on his whiteboard today. It's be curious.
Yes. There's another one in even smaller print back there. But that one, I don't have my bionic eyes on this morning, unfortunately. I can't see that one.
Yeah. Right. But that be curious piece, I think always, even before I would have used those words, I connected with that idea of curiosity. And there's so much space, I think, in every workplace for the leaders in that place to shift from an attachment to their ideas about the way things should be happening or the way employees should be behaving or performing into a curiosity about what's going on with them, what's driving them, why they're doing what they're doing. And it's in that curious space that all things HR get way, way more interesting. And it's why I've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah, we used to say all the time in the graduate program at Teton Science Schools. Well, these are the questions we would ask our students. What do you notice? What do you wonder?
Yeah, beautiful.
And if you do those two things, a lot of things will follow from that, right? Um, I'm curious too, if we flip this around now and look more at where you've been practicing the last 15 years. I see the Brewers Association now, and it sounds like you've been in the craft beer space for a while. Was that true in other states outside of Colorado as well? Because I'm wondering, just at a high level, what your experience working in craft beer has been like if you have been state hopping and doing that in a couple different places.
Yeah, so all my, right, I'm 40. I've been at the Brewers Association. It'll be 17 years in January.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so I was 23 years old. I took the job, 20 hours a week, data entry in the finance department, making $14 an hour because it was like a 40% raise over what I was getting to.
$14 an hour in 2006 or whatever would have been.
I don't know what it is.
Pretty
I don't
lit.
know what it is now, but it was a big deal to me at the time. I was painting houses, I was babysitting. I was doing anything I could to make my way out here in Colorado and stay after coming from New York. But all my HR and craft beer experience has taken place in Colorado, with the caveat that the Brewers Association is a national nonprofit, right? And so we serve all of the roughly 9,500 breweries throughout the country.
Totally. Yeah, Andrew, go ahead. Oh, cool. All right. I'm doing the thing when I was a teacher on Zoom where even the slightest change in someone's body language, I'm like, yes, you have a question. Here's a question for the two of you. You both work in leadership development. I'm wondering, you don't have to give me the first leader who inspired you in your life, but if you had to name even just a few of the people that really helped to shape you on your own journey, especially when you were younger, I think Kristen and I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I could jump in there. Great question. I think one of my easy answer here is my dad. He also worked in restaurants. He spent 50 years working in restaurants. Across many different, he did small restaurants to large institutional food service. He worked for Sodexo and Marriott. He did a lot of really interesting things in the restaurant and hospitality space as well. And I think for me early on, and I don't know, as I get older and explore some of these childhood memories, his work ethic and he was the old school restaurant guy. He worked a ton, probably at the expense of his family in some cases. And I think there was, I took a lot from that, and has certainly over the years used that as a driver of hard work ethic, making sure you show up, integrity, a lot of those kind of core values that I have, I think, for better or worse, came from watching him, grind in the restaurant industry in the 80s and 90s and make a name for him. So that he's a pretty cool old guy. He's still consulting and has sort of leveraged his decades of experience there to retire and keep consulting. And he's the guy that I'm like, he's going to work until he can't anymore. He has that love for it and that drive. So he's a big one for me. And I could keep going, but I don't know if you want to jump in, Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my mom and dad were the two that jumped to my mind, and for different reasons. What I saw in my dad was hard work, consistency. He had like a little bit of that. He was a administrator in the local county government, child support enforcement, child protective services, sort of like a county bureaucrat. And that's a union environment. And that was actually the first place that I worked out of college. I went and did a year there. And my perception of that environment when I was there was it was cushy or safe. Like you could, the threshold for getting in trouble for not being productive enough was like very, very low. So what I saw in my dad was like what I now understand to be discretionary effort. He could have gotten away with cruising, and instead he brought this genuine humanity and care to what he did. I think just because he believed it was the right thing to do. And now as a people leader, there was a time when I thought everyone should do that. And now what I've sort of come to understand at a deeper level is, first of all, that should is a dirty word. And
it implies some judgment in a very sneaky kind of way.
Yeah. There's judgment inherent in it. And to bring it back to that concept of curiosity, to think in a should manner, I think is wishing things to be a different way than they really are. And when you, instead of thinking, well, this person should be doing X, Y, or Z, or should be this productive, the more profitable way in is to get curious with them about what's going on with them that's getting in the way from them being as productive as they can be as an individual. So I think about my dad's discretionary effort, and then I think about my mom. My mom was a grinder, man. Like, she's taking care of 4 kids. She's getting us out of the house every day. And then she would go in, and she does the same thing now. She's still working. My dad's retired. But like, same thing. Now, like what I saw in my mom is what I now, as a people leader and somebody who does a lot of hiring and recruiting, I think about her motor, and I look for that motor in everybody that we hire. I want to see somebody who's going to raise their hand when they have finished all of the work that was on their plate and say, hey, I can do more. And my mom was somebody who always made her bones by, she was not going to sit idle at work. Her motor was always running, and she was going to empty the tank and then make us dinner at night and put us to bed and get us out the door the next morning.
That's awesome. Kristen, I have another question, but I want to kick it to you for a moment if you have one brewing on your end.
No, keep going. It's great.
Cool. We've talked a lot about being curious. What are you two feeling curious about right now? And by right now, I mean, it could be today, it could be in the last week, it could be this month, this year. What are you feeling curious about, and what have you been exploring lately in all your various hats and roles?
Yeah, good one. I want to think about it a little bit. Drew, is something popping in your mind?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think for me, I think that for me, I've always been, the learner. That's one of my default, right? Is I'm always wanting to learn. I always feel this need to personally challenge myself and to grow. And I think, the key, like Ryan said a few minutes ago, I don't know that I've always called it curiosity, that it's that's a newer way for me to think about it, as well. But I think I am in this place, it's my first job as a COO, first time sort of with this level of responsibility. I think I probably put a lot of pressure on myself to perform and to show up and to make sure I'm being the leader that I want to be for myself and for my team. Probably more for the people around me is where that pressure comes from. I've gotten really curious in the last 6 months just about sort of my personal values and getting clear on, what is it actually, what are those things that are driving me, and what gives me energy, and where do I feel like I'm doing the most valuable work, that I feel rewarded, right? I think with, the work ethic and the energy that I put into any job and any role I've ever had, I'm always confident that I'm making an impact. So I've really tried to get curious about what fills up my bucket, and what are the things, there's 1,000 things that I can do every day, and really understanding more about what drives me and what makes me feel good and feel rewarded at the end of the day has been a fun exploration for me over the last months.
Yeah, I love that, Andrew. I'm thinking about one of the things I've been curious about is what kind of impact I can have next as a leader, with a focus on helping people see the shift that's available to them from leader holding direct report accountable into coaching up direct report to have a sense of ownership and responsibility for the things that they want to accomplish. There's this sort of like push-pull nature to that. And I think a lot of leaders think, and maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the paradigm was set clear expectations, hold accountable to expectations. And there's a certain, that strikes me as one, I get it, and super effective in certain situations. So it's good. And I think there's a shift to great that's available for leaders when they can come into and form agreements with the people that they're working with, where both parties in the agreement are going to have personal internal responsibility or a personal internal commitment to getting to that outcome. And rather than the leader needing to pull it out of the person and say, hey, what are you doing? You said you were going to do this. Now it's almost a punitive vibe. When leaders are able to come into agreement with their people, there's a shift into ownership and responsibility. And I think that's really powerful. And even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about my kids. My kids are 6 and 4. And that shift is like, it's like ripe fruit with children. Like you can, when it shifts from a thing that my parents want me to do and I must obey, from that into it's my thing. That sense of like kids want to have control over their own environment, right? Like there's this, especially at 6 and 4, there's like this desire for autonomy and control. And this is a way of, when you come into agreements with your kids and actually make requests of them that they can say yes to, their sense of ownership spirals, and they have, you've upgraded their own capacity to be invested in the outcome because it's their own outcome. So this whole thing is like revolutionary to me.
Yeah, I love that, Ryan, because, I love to think about what you're bringing up for me right now is really that, on the opposite side of accountability is empowerment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And the best leaders, I think, understand what you said. You set the expectations and then you let your team go find their own way and get curious about how to achieve those results. Right. I think we've all worked for leaders that set the expectations and then chase you around about those expectations for updates constantly. And that's exhausting.
Yes. And right. So that good
will stunt your growth.
Yeah. That good to great shift is from expectations and accountability. This doesn't mean no expectations from you, right? It's just about pairing your own being clear about your expectations, pairing it with what the employee or what the kid or whoever it is you're in relationship with. I mean, this can go peer to peer too. I mean, this is an amazing tool in relationship, in marriage, in intimate relationships. Both sides become equal creators or co-creators of what they need, what they want for themselves and what they need from the other party. And so both get to share and make explicit those hidden implicit expectations come together, and expectations made explicit from both sides equals agreement. And you can come into an agreement with each other that requires a yes from both sides. And then you're sort of co-committed and off and running.
Yeah, you're touching on abolitionist thinking there, and this idea that if we start to move away from compliance-based thinking and hierarchy and more toward a world where the relationship is the source of accountability. I'm thinking about a nonprofit actually here in Tucson that made headlines recently when they had some of their animals stolen from their farm. And the details aren't super relevant. It's Flowers and Bullets. Please donate to support them if you're listening to this. But more to the point, in this news release where they discussed this theft from the farm, I thought it was really remarkable when the founders said, hey, we're not interested in pressing charges. Like, we really just want to find the people who are responsible for this and bring them back into the fold and have a conversation and really understand what happened, what led them to do this. And without saying it in as many words, how can we rehabilitate them in the community, right? Because justice means that they're not going to be disappeared somewhere or punished in some way. I think justice for the community would be coming to some sense of understanding and then bringing those people back into the fold, which tells them that they have value, right? Of course, a crime was committed. This wasn't good. But even thinking about this in an organizational or HR context, I think it goes a long way when, to your point, Ryan, early on in your career, when you were yeah, there was a certain degree of safety and space to make mistakes. Cool, that will inevitably happen. And when it does, what happens when you know that you still have value, even after that all transpires, right? When someone says, hey, let's move through this and find a way to get better, right? That is such a shift from the way that I even remember my first job going, where, again, it was all compliance based. I was ordering products for a dairy cooler in Cleveland, Ohio. And if I missed even one of those facings, the GM was down the next morning counting every single missing product on our shelves. And then he would write in big red letters how many empty spacings we had on the whiteboard in our back room. I mean, yeah, it was motivating.
It's clearly still with you.
That...
It's clearly, yeah, he made it some kind
of...
yeah.
Oh, it will always be with me. 76. That was what I remember on that day.
Nick, you got to do better, dude. 76 is too many.
I know, 76.
Nick, we can work through that if you need.
Actually, we had 4% shrink in that department for about a month and a half. That was pretty bad. But we worked through it. It's all good. Speaking of learning, here's my last question for the two of you. And then I'll kick it back to Kristen. What have you learned from each other? You've known each other a long time. I'm wondering, you don't have to boil it down to one thing, but I would just love to hear something that you have learned from the other person in your decades of both friendship and working together as colleagues.
Yeah, I'll go first, Andrew. And Nick, I love what's happening here because like Andrew said, we've known each other for 20 years, maybe Drew 22 years now. And your question, or maybe just us being together in this format, conjured something I've never thought of with Andrew before. And Drew, I won't give the gory details of this memory.
Oh, please do.
But there was a time, it was early in our time in Colorado, Andrew was very down. And I don't even really know why, but you came to my house. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Go on.
And he needed a place to stay for a couple of days. You know, he had his own place, but he needed to get away. And he just stayed, I think slept on our couch for a couple of nights. And one of the things now deeper, you know, in our relationship that I think I've learned from you, Andrew, and appreciate and love is your, I guess it's like the words that are coming up for me are toughness, resilience. Like we've both taken some tough punches in these years that we've known each other, and there's like man, when you're down, you know, I'm someone who has suffered from depression and had a period of what they call suicidal ideations, you know, where you're starting to maybe think about taking your own life. And what I've seen and learned from Andrew is you could be real low and there's a certain like undefeatability of the human spirit. And when you stick with it, when you hang in there, when you're resourceful, lean on your friends, lean on the people in your life, you can bounce back, man, even when it doesn't feel like you can.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was after a 4-day trip to Vegas, I believe.
That's right. So you can fill in the blanks.
Lots of regrets on that trip. Well, thank you for saying that, Ryan. That's great. I think, yeah, with, you know, the years of friendship and, you know, playing competitive, right? Like I think that the sharing that competitive piece too, that we've had over the years in the Frisbee field, like, you know, we didn't really touch on it much, but Ryan is one of the hardest competitors that I've ever known, just from a, like when he sets his mind to something, right, he's all in, and right, like he will do everything to go down that path and to, you know, not just be excellent physically, you know, physically fit, but right, understand the strategy and tactics and you know, thinking through, you know, and I'm sort of thinking about this in, you know, sport context, but I think this applies to everything that I see Ryan do. And I think that I've always been impressed by how deep you go into, like, when you set your mind to something, you're going all in, right? There's not like, I'm going to go do it a little bit, right? You're not going to go play club soccer a little bit. Like you're going to, you're going to go and you're going to play and you're going to show up and you're, you know, it's what you're doing right now. And sort of, I've always appreciated, respected, and sort of like tried to do that myself, where it's like, if I'm going to do something, like, let's go all the way and let's be the best that I can be. And it doesn't mean that you have to be the best at something, but you're going to be the best that you can be at that thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's something that I've, you know, seen you do in so many different ways over the years. That's always fun to watch.
Yeah, really touching. Thank you. And I played a game in my over 40 rec league soccer league last night. I'm like, picturing myself talking shit to people and banging into bodies and, you know, screaming like a maniac. So it's that's what I'm doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you both. Kristen?
Yeah,
what do you got?
Thank you. I love that we never know where these podcasts are going to go, and love that you've both shared this common theme of curiosity, which is just so important for leaders to be successful and to find balance. And, you know, you said it earlier, Ryan, but in this competitiveness that the two of you have together, the foundation is deep love. So love that you shared that with us today. And again, Ryan, I'm going to throw it to you here. I know Andrew's got a tattoo of his Frisbee team. What do you got?
Is that what tattoos do I have question?
Yeah.
Well, so
what's your commitment level?
Yeah, it's fine. I have 2 tattoos. One of them's I got when I was 18. It's the cut from the cover of Catch 22. So it's Yossarian. It's like a red dancing man. I got that with a nerd friend of mine. We would geek out on books, and both ended up being English majors. He's an English literature educator now. And then the other one is a tattoo I got with Team USA, a world's teammate named George. We got the same tattoo up on our thigh, and it's a circle, and 1 dot inside and 1 dot outside, and it sort of represents the friendship and unity that we formed during our time on the team together. And there's one of us on the field and the other one supporting from the sideline, was sort of the way that we became really close.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Love to have you both back on and talk a little bit more about your Frisbee journey and how you've seen kind of leadership show up in every position on the field for sure down the road. But can't thank you enough for being here. Where, if listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can get me at Ryan at farrellgroup.co.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Mangan, or email is andrew@manganco.com.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to connecting with you both very soon. I'm also looks like slotted to be back in town here in the next couple months. So I'm excited to get videos from your children of ice cream orders and then reviews on how the ice cream went, because those make my heart very happy. So thank you so much again for being here. Be sure to listen in each week on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow Kristen Marvin and Nick Spinelli on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Solutions by Kristen newsletter. We'll talk to y'all next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.